Everything in life carries both bitterness and sweetness. We tend to label experiences as wholly good or wholly bad, but most things land somewhere in between. We fixate on absolutes, this is right, that is wrong, this is wonderful, that is awful, and overlook the fact that reality is richer than such neat divisions. Every moment has dimensions of both challenge and opportunity. Consider any major life event. Even something we describe as purely positive, like landing a dream job, can bring stress in the form of new responsibilities or performance pressures. Alternatively, events we call tragic often inspire some level of introspection, growth, or unexpected unity among people. These complexities are baked into our experiences. Bittersweetness emerges when we realize that life rarely hands us one-sided scenarios. They're multi-layered, shaped by our hopes, regrets, and personal goals. We're trained, however, to classify things in terms of black and white. We celebrate what seems all sweet and steer clear of anything that smacks of bitterness. But in doing so, we miss the deeper reality that even the sweet can harbor seeds of bitterness, and the bitter can contain moments of sweetness. It's not a contradiction. It's an acknowledgement that perspective, timing, and personal context can reframe an event. Perspective plays a huge role here. Something that appears negative when measured against one set of values can seem liberating if your priorities differ. An individual might see losing a job as a major setback, but someone else in the same situation might see it as a chance to shift careers or explore passions. The event is identical, but the lens we apply changes how bitter or sweet it feels. This doesn't mean we dismiss real pain or real joy. Rather, we learn to see the duality woven into each. That's why it's vital to spot the shades of gray that exist in our so-called black or white world. Binary thinking can simplify decisions for us, yes or no, good or bad, do it or avoid it. But reality doesn't always cooperate with such simplicity. Whether you're dealing with relationships, career choices, or personal growth, the nuances matter. A job that looks terrible on the surface might offer just enough challenge to stimulate growth. A relationship that seems perfect might actually be stifling long-term aspirations. The contexts are endless, but the key remains the same. The bitter coexists with the sweet, and labeling something one way forever might blind you to the other side. An important outcome of recognizing the bittersweet nature of life is emotional resilience. When you accept that every positive will come with pockets of strain, and every negative might have a silver lining, you become more adaptable. You're less likely to be rattled by setbacks because you're aware that there could be a hidden benefit or an instructive lesson somewhere within. Conversely, you're not overly naive about successes because you understand that new challenges accompany every victory. Another facet is how bitterness and sweetness shift depending on personal goals. If your main pursuit is creative freedom, you might welcome the risk of uncertain income, which could be bitter to someone who prioritizes financial stability above all else. If you prize solitude, you might find large social gatherings to be draining, whereas a more extroverted person sees them as a sweet opportunity to connect. The more you clarify your underlying values, the easier it becomes to see how experiences can be bitter or sweet relative to what you personally seek. This duality also appears in nature. Harsh storms nourish the land, even as they cause destruction. Intense sunlight fosters life but can lead to drought if it continues untempered. In relationships, disagreements can be painful, yet they often yield a deeper understanding if both parties are willing to learn. These everyday examples confirm that bittersweet isn't a poetic idea. It's a fundamental pattern of existence. Recognizing nuance doesn't mean we stop feeling genuine pain or joy. It simply acknowledges that these emotions occur in a spectrum. Something that once felt wholly negative can later reveal layers of meaning we didn't see at the time. Likewise, something that seems entirely blissful can contain hidden stressors. It's a more realistic and arguably more mature way to face life head-on. When you let go of the urge to categorize everything in absolutes, you open the door to richer understanding. Conversations can become less about proving who's right or who's wrong, and more about exploring how multiple truths can coexist. You learn to hold space for contradictions. A person can be both flawed and loving, A job can be both exciting and exhausting. A dream can be both inspiring and terrifying. If you start looking for these dualities, you find them everywhere. Ultimately, the practice of viewing life as bittersweet can deepen empathy, both for ourselves and for others. We realize that each person's reality is shaped by a blend of experiences, values, and interpretations. Judging solely through a black and white framework can be harsh. Acknowledging that even seemingly negative choices might have come from an equally valid set of priorities or emotional states fosters greater compassion. This awareness can fuel more balanced decision-making. Instead of waiting for a perfect option that's 100% sweet, you might accept that any choice you make includes trade-offs. That acceptance can prevent the paralysis that arises from believing we must find an option with zero downsides. It can also keep us from panic when life tosses us the inevitable curveballs. After all, if no path is purely sweet, it makes sense to weigh the bitterness we can handle in pursuit of the sweetness we desire. In the end, the biggest lesson is that life's complexities are normal rather than a sign that something has gone wrong. The presence of hardship doesn't negate the potential for sweetness, just as the presence of joy doesn't eliminate all difficulties. When we look honestly at this interplay, we stop being surprised by life's twists and turns. We still feel them, but we allow ourselves to navigate them with a steadier heart and a clearer mind. That's the essence of bittersweetness, to recognize that every experience, good or bad, contains layers beneath the surface. As we move through each day, we can choose to stay open to both the challenges that sharpen us and the joys that soften us. Each moment has something to teach if we can let go of rigid labels and embrace the full, complex flavor of life.